Start recording. Okay, so today, don't want it to last as long as yesterday, where I had to sort of split it into two parts. Um, so gotta figure out what I want to do. And there were a few different people. Is this clipping in and out or doing weird stuff, or am I just seeing it peripherally? I think I'm just seeing it peripherally. Okay. People, when I was asking questions about what they wanted to see in live streams, it was people asking about creative process, which is a weird thing to actually explain. It's because it's something that sort of feels innate. Am I seeing that flicker out of the corner of my eye? I'm gonna watch it for a minute, but it's just my stream thing's acting up. Let me pause it. So that's just on my end. I don't think that it's actually doing it broadcast. Anyway, discussing creative process, because over time things become more innate and less of something of a task that you're sort of accomplishing, or that you create a foundation of awareness of necessary elements, and you no longer are so conscientious of establishing those things each time. And so it's kind of hard to explain what a creative process is like. It's more having a loose concept and then trying to see how it works. I don't have a great explanation. I'm trying to figure out the best way to start into it, to maybe plan it out more, but then it's not a creative moment in that moment. That's just a planned out thing, but maybe that's the most necessary element. A lot of it is just mentally imagining an action or a movement or something like that and trying to recreate it somehow, some way. And I think actually for me, something that sort of influenced my understanding of movement on various scales was when CSI was super big. They would do all of these recreations of very intimate, often grotesque, macro shots of things, but it would have to be faked, so it would be like a zoom in, distorted thing that sort of smoothed out the rough edges of if you have a wide shot of a person and then you get close to them and then you showcase their bones or something, and it's a zoomed in thing, and there's a lot of Foley work and sound, and that sound creates a stronger understanding of what is physically happening, but also it's faked by examining conceptually what that thing might look or sound like, and then repurposing other items to replicate that sensation through a limited number of senses. So you have to heighten the visual and the sound elements because you don't have smell, touch, taste, or other things like that. You don't have as visceral a connection. You have to exaggerate those elements, and so I think that influenced some amount of my creative understanding of motion and movement and things. But as far as creative process, so much of it is just seeing something and thinking, what could I do with that, and what could I do that's unique related to that object, that thing. So the most recent sort of different thing that I did was I folded a crane, which is something that is a pretty old thing. It's not something that I invented by any means. Origami crane. It's something that I did a lot when I was younger, and it's sort of instated in my mind. I just have it memorized now. But it breaks down into basic forms. So now you have filling up a space with various shapes And as you create additional forms within that, you can start to play with what these core elements are. Even origami just in general is like taking a core thing and then repurposing it with pretty strict limitations of a square piece of paper. And going from there and building it in different ways. And so now this has a lot more happening with it, but this is just like a base form. And this isn't even a particularly complex base form. You just would go from here, and then you start to use elements of it and build and expand upon it. And if you were to flatten it back out, now you have this alternative grid pattern. And depending on how you were to fold it as a mountain or a valley fold, now the forms that would naturally sort of come about are completely different by that one change. So it's a lot of playing with stuff. It's hard to explain outright creative process, and a lot of it happens just in my head. It's not explicitly something that I'm actively trying to do. It just sort of happens a lot of the time. And it's seeing something and wanting to expand upon it or change it, visit it in a different context. That's another base form that you'd actually have to rigid fold. Sort of meditating on some idea, giving yourself restrictions. That's how it works for me, is giving myself boundaries and then working within those boundaries and solving problems, balancing equations or what have you. I mess that one up. So now you have these additional confines, and you could repeat elements, change them up, or do whatever. I don't know. It's real hard for me to explain creative process because so much of it's just happening in my head. But, I don't know, I might do another face loop today. That's easier. Not as much active stuff, because last time it was 6 different faces inside. How many megapixels does my brush have? 3 megapixels? That would be a dumb brush. Stupid big, because you don't need, it's way too big a brush. Unless you, I don't know, maybe eventually the pixel density will get to the point where you can have a 3 megapixel brush and that's just a small, tiny facet of something much larger. What do I want to do with this? Could mess with the idea that I have like a core section of the face, like just a shape, and then it warps around. That doesn't really do anything. That actually might be easier than the thing I did yesterday, if I were to take a bunch of holes on the face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stuff flows out. because all of this would be relatively organic. And then you create a pool at the bottom, fill it up, and then it lifts back up. This squishes in. Wrinkly guy. I don't know what happens to the wrinkly guy unless the wrinkly guy falls into the liquid. Splash. Liquid everywhere. Settle back in. Just shrinks to nothing. And there's a moment where something exists and it doesn't. Now you're talking about liquid, about what happens if this guy just sort of drips out. So it's squeezing in, coming down. Nope, nope, I'm going to draw that bit. Then you have a separated out section down here. Something I haven't sort of done in a while is like having separate little guys pop off. Maybe do that. I saw something for Saint Denis for that mission that you can't actually catch that kid, but you have to like get stuff perfect. I dislike that mission because just in general dislike Saint Denis and that whole thing of that dude who's got the crime lord in Saint Denis. They stole a kid and then they use other kids. Half the time when you run in Saint Denis, you like accidentally knock over someone, and then there's so many police everywhere pretty quick. It's really not made for enjoyment in that game. The sort of main appeal of Saint Denis is that you can get more dapper clothes, you can get a different haircut, and you can get the Arabian horse. But only once you like advance to the point in the game where you're at.
Yeah, Saint Denis is not the most fun.
But afterwards, you get to do the. You can try and get those fish or whatever that you had missed out on in Guarma.
This one's gonna be perhaps a bit more linear.
Gonna be more linear. I visited my older sister's Animal Crossing island today because she had turnips selling at 500 something, like 540 bells, and it's the first week in a while that I've gotten turnips. She was like, same for me. And so did that this morning. I didn't have like a crazy number of turnips, but enough to where I made like 400,000 bells or something. Which I haven't done in a minute. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna quit this and then load it back up. Because Twitch keeps actually like twitching. And it is distracting, even out of the, like, my peripheral vision is distracting. Come on. Go into the channel so I can type things in if need be. See if it keeps twitching. Yep, it's still doing the thing. She can't see, hopefully, as a viewer. And it's only the... It's not like the live feed, it's just the display window. Because I have the live feed paused on my computer. So that insofar as might mess with the idea of like elements moving. Right now I'm considering how the movement in one direction would be sort of balanced with having it then move back in the opposite direction, but possibly like considered more of a isolated body itself. This object to the left here, moving to the right. And what I kind of want to do is have it like pick up this other eye, so then eventually you have a form over here that's just the two eyes, and the eyes are missing from here, and then it could also grab this part and sort of create its own little face. And that's the plan right now. My intention. Crazy thing back to when I used to do these and I was like 12 is way too many frames. That's also when I would be like 1 hour is too much work. But now it's like 1 hour is barely enough to do anything.
See how far off we've gotten with this. I'm gonna try and talk a little bit more about little thought process bits as I'm going. See how well I can do that.
So at this point, I've had sort of two major motions. It's been this section going off to the side initially, and that's one of the eyes going off here. Wait a second while this settles, and then it quickly advances back across, which distorts this. And it's a soft body, so, or at least in this situation, I'm drawing it softer. And so when it hits initially, it distorts a little bit, and you have to account for the mass of this face, the physicality of it. If you push here, it has to move out and dissipate somewhere, so this actually pushes out a little bit on either edge. And this shape gets more exaggerated, implying that it's moving faster because it's more distorted. And now it's started to distort and displace larger sections in here, also pushing this face a little bit further out and further down and out in each of those. Continued distortion here. This is where there's a little bit of a trick happening. It's not the most intuitive sort of thing, but this eye is starting to get picked up, which is just sort of, it happens so fast that it doesn't get perceived in the final bit. It's just part of the thing, so you can sort of push it out of what it actually would do in a physical space. As this is pushing further here, this is still getting distorted. This is getting a little bit wider because it's starting to fill in this gap. Not immediately, because this is moving much faster than this solid body here. But it starts to close in a little bit as this continues to advance. It's picked up this entire eye, and now this form has broken through this nose section. Continued to close in. Says, if you're thinking about the tension of something that's wide, this still has some tension on either of these edges because it's closer to the edge, and so this middle section bows faster than the far edges. This continues to move out. This continues to close that gap, but not as quickly as it moved through it. That's not in sequence, that's just a reference. This starts to close, and then it pushes a little bit out towards that edge here. This finally breaks out, and this is slowing down, and as it's slowing down, it's returning to a more circular shape that isn't pushed in any direction by the motion. And then it continues that way. This continues to settle back. This nose section is settling in on this edge and then this edge because the action happened in this direction, which means that the reaction and the settling will happen in the same direction. This continues to settle, and then it continues to settle. And so now I'm letting things sort of more or less settle, but I might start to then have this sort of prepare. Settled for half a second, but really, I think I have to just sort of have it turn down this way, because otherwise it'll be awkward. If I'd planned this out a little bit better as I was going, I would have this push through and then continue moving, but I've already had it settle for a frame, like stationary, which means that it wouldn't make sense for it to go, but having it go makes enough sense. So it's relatively circular, so I can sort of also get away with the idea that it starts this way. 21. Pardon me blowing the nose. Now this is going to start to move this direction, and it'll intersect into the face, and it's going to pick that. Those lips up. Three. I'm gonna let it dry. Loaded up my brush a bit too heavy. And it'll stick. If I grab this and do that, I'm gonna get a sip. Okay. Next one. Seven. Phew. He's a rough guy. There it is. This is 31. I thought it was like 28. My bad. My mistake for the numbers. Apologies, everyone. Anyone watching? Make sure that I'm recording. Okay. Bonjour. Bienvenido. Hola. Welcome. Willkommen. Konnichiwa. Ni hao. I think those are the languages that I know how to say hello. Ciao. Hey. Or hi, I forget. And then moi. I know a tiny bit of Finnish because there was a family friend who stayed at the house who married a Finnish woman and had a kid, and kid didn't know all that much in either Finnish or English at the time. Now she's older, which is weird. She was like 2 or 3 when they stayed at the house, but that was like 8 years ago. So she can talk and stuff now, but at the time she couldn't. and she said moi. She could only say like 2-syllable words or 3-syllable strings of words together. She couldn't say 3-syllable words. She could. So what she would say for me is moi mati. She couldn't say all 3 syllables of my name. And then to say goodbye, you say moi moi. Repeat it, which I think is kind of typical in Scandinavian languages, at least in Danish and Finnish. I have no idea about Swedish. Or Icelandic. Norse? Do not know. Gross. 33. Bonjour. Bonjour. Hello, hello. It's a long way to get back to that. Today is a face loop. What's happening is I had a little blob come out this side, and then it went back the other direction and picked up the eye on the first one, came back, got the second eye, and then it tilted down, grabbed the mouth, and so now it's settling here, and I'm having it sort of twist and then land back into it all. 34. This one is much faster than yesterday's because less rigid and fewer moving elements. It's also just softer, sort of in general. It's not as specific, which I guess I said the other one was more rigid, but that's what, well, it doesn't matter right now. I still have some stuff that needs to happen here. Get back to this guy because I need to start moving it towards this initial placement as best as possible.
This is 36. 36. Not too much worry about. Switch out that tape time for some wood block sound. And I get to turn the volume down. That looks decent on the volume there. $38. Adios. How do you say goodbye in French? Adieu. A bientôt. A bientôt. Guess who get pain? Wait, how do you? Pain MJ2013.7 Spain. Cool. Hasta la vista. MJ 2013.7. Well, there's something of it's not good, but if I have a spam bot, that means that at least they're participating and watching. That I have enough value to try and exploit. Yeah, this is 37. Let me double check this number. Nope, this is 39. Hey, I got 100 followers. Someone, I forget who followed me. Hola, Anna. Like, how did I get so many things there? And it was because I marked an email as unread, but it had a bunch of correspondence on it. Okay. Buenos tardes.
41. Buenos tardes? Did I say buenos? Lo siento. Buenos? Or good? I'm not sure. You understood what I meant, but I might have said it wrong. Just not ideal, but it's okay. Buenos tardes. Yes. I'll get sub Spanish better as time goes on, but for the moment, not doing the best. Dang it. Okay, I put these out of order. And I was grabbing things. I was like, that's not what I wanted. I put to the side. It seemed off. And then I realized why. How many pages? This is number 42, I believe. Yeah, 42. Stuff's sort of settling now. Almost to the end of this.
43. I have, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 stills left. And then I'll talk through the motion and the reasoning behind certain choices. And then I'll take like an hour to fill in the solid areas. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it will. And then scan. And then the other bit. Just use a big Sharpie. I don't know if it would speed it up or not. I know that that's a joke. Yeah, that's how this dynamic goes all the time. But I still am like, what's the actual logistics of it? As always. When I see written out like that, I think about like a fat laughing lizard gif. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a spiny lizard. Yeah, that's what I think about. I think about that fat lizard. That's what it's from, straight up. Cool. I didn't know if it had some other source. I was trying to think for a second. Is 46 divisible by anything? 28, right? No, 24. No, 46 would be 23, so it's only divisible by 46, 23. 2 and 1. And there was 47, I think. Let's do one more so I get a more even distribution when I make a grid out of it. Okay. So we'll go slowly, sort of generally through the movements and stuff. So first frame, just face happening. Second frame, things are starting to bulge out here, which I took it in slightly right here, because if this is moving out here, this has a mass, which means that you aren't creating mass, which, whatever. But to make it look more realistic, as you pull something out, other sections have to be removed. Continuing on that, it starts to pull this eye, and a little bit of that nose. The eye eventually gets pulled out into this form. The nose just gets distorted. This holds on for a minute, gets thinner as it pulls further apart, and the eye gets more settled in there. When it starts to break, this nose follows that sort of pattern, and then things settle a bit down. Settles here, settles there, settle, settle. Everything settles. And then this eye starts to move back towards the face. It hits here, starts to indent this slightly, and pushes out above and below it just a little bit. This is where it's a little bit faked as far as the volume, the mass that's consumed or moved and such, but it distorts this. It's going pretty fast at this moment in time, which is why there's not as much sloped distortion. Like if this was moving slowly and pushing it, you'd have a more exaggerated motion, but because it's speeding through, you have harsher indentation but less overall distortion. Continuing on, this is where you're playing a little bit with... You got a licking dude in the chat. At this spot, play with the distortion a little bit. by elongating this eye, this section is starting to close in as this is moving through, but this is moving quickly and this is is that clean your eye? What does it translate to? It's gonna make for a weird pacing on the time lapse, but took his eye. It takes the eye, so you're talking about earlier on. That's what I'm playing with in here. Anyway, because this is moving faster, this is moving slower, just because it's a stationary object that's being affected. So this is slowly starting to settle back in. Now this is picked up the second eye, makes its way out of the space. This reconnects, which means you lose that seam. This is starting to slow down at this edge, so this elongated, distorted shape starts to condense and get wider or thicker. This condenses more, continues there, this gets a little bit wider. There's less of a break at this point because the pacing of the animation, it's sort of like, here's a face, here's a slow action that lets you understand a little bit about what might be happening, and you learn what's happening. Give it a second, and you go faster on the second one, because you've established what the action is. This is still settling, this is closing, this nose is settling back in. This is starting to turn because it's going to come down this direction. Turns a little bit further, this settles pretty much its final bit. This starts to move, and as it's picking up speed, it distorts it further. Now it's hitting here, you know, distortion pushing it out there. Pushes further in here, the lips and the nose start to be affected by that larger piece coming in here. It's just grabbed onto the lips. Continues moving, distortion cuts through, this is starting to settle a little bit here, settles more, this is pulling some other items, continuing to pull, this is settling more, this is establishing a little bit more of the positioning of the two eyes and the mouth. This is condensing more, this is broken free now, reconvening, this is following a distorted bit. Now it's as settled as it's gonna be, but it still is slowed down and condensed a bit. It's still condensed, but it's moving still because we established the motion for the first two, so now we don't have to give as much time for the third, and it gives it a more naturalistic acceleration. So now it's starting to distort, and it's turning and twisting. Turning and twisting, coming back, makes contact with the head, pushes into it, you have some distortion on the head surrounding area, furthers in, it's slowing down, it's not moving as fast, and this breaks, it's combining with the head, combining but still having a sense of motion and some distortion. And now it's into the most sort of abstracted. There's a general motion of this direction, so as it's reconnecting with the other bits of the face, it's still following a bit of that motion, but it has to have these segments repositioned back to their original spots. And so this is following this sort of twist, this one's continuing in this direction, and this one's following, but now settling back down. Settling down some more. The nose is starting to settle. Eyes are going back to their original positions. Mouth is settling, nose is settling. This a reference one that's just for whatever use. Settling, settling. This eye has a little slow bit, and then back to the original position. that's how it loops. Stretching. And now I get to go fill in the solids, but it should go at a decent pace because it's mostly the head, the nose sort of form, and then the lips, but it's not complex in the same way that yesterday's took like 2 hours to fill in because of small detailed sections. This one, it's larger areas to fill in, so it's relatively fast. Not the fastest, but relatively quick. And the size of these lips means that for the most part I can get away with just using this chiseled brush that I don't have to switch hands quite so often. Come on. So let me pick up a piece of paper.
Quarter of the way down, and then some. Flip and take time. I got confused when you said that you got a gator and you want to put some mods on, because I was trying to figure. I was reading it as you saying that you wanted to put mods on this stream, and I was like, okay, if you are preoccupied with having a gator and you think that things are going chaotic enough to where someone else needs to take the reins of sometimes banning someone. So far, there's only 2, and one of them is a bot. But what's the? I remember seeing a mod early on that was for Red Dead. That's for like the horse tornado or something. I think you can get a donkey, but it's a terrible thing. Like, it's not a great animal to ride. Like, it's got bad stats, but I think you can ride a donkey in Red Dead. I was trying to be like, you can ride a bear, and then I was like, no, that's in what is it? In Breath of the Wild, you can ride a bear without any mods, but you can't store it. Horse gun. I watched a few more Donkey videos, seeing him rating some games and talking about positive and negative aspects and different approaches to like Mario games. And how Super Mario Galaxy was a delineation from previous games where you had the platform was a little bit broader, but Galaxy is far more linear. And for Super Mario Sunshine, that the mechanics, like that typically they introduce more subtle abilities, like new abilities or changes and stuff, but for Super Mario Sunshine, it's like, here you go, you can really break this down, change stuff up. Using the water gun and that, you have like a turbo thing that can completely change stuff up. He also talked about like the worst gameplay elements, and I agreed with them. The not fun ones. Horse gun. Halfway done. Or just about halfway done. When this one is finished, I'll be halfway done filling in these stills. And then I can respond to an email that I got. It did get posted. posted the Fiona Apple video on This is Colossal, or on Colossal. I don't know if they posted anything on their Instagram, but I got an email from someone in Germany asking about buying still. And gotta get that figured out. I forget how much it costs to ship to Germany. It's like at least $15, but it might. I need to see how much the thing weighs and whether or not it bumps it up to the next weight category for international shipping, because it's not like a direct, it is a direct correlation, but it's a tiered system for international shipping through USPS. So if something weighs like 6 ounces, it'll cost the same as something that weighs 8 ounces, or 7 ounces, or 1 ounce, or whatever. But once you get past like 8 ounces, then it ups it by like $10. Did you play any more missions in Red Dead? Just been fishing and such. Upgrades for the satchels and such. The most annoying thing was getting, I think, Kugu pelts, but I talked about that before. Cougar or panther or whatever pelts. Badger was annoying to find. And iguana. With iguanas, you have to like sail out to a little island. What was it? Something I didn't understand about, I think, like perfect caribou or something? Or moose. There's some big thing that you hunt that even if you shoot it, it still sort of like goes on for a minute, but then you can go up with your knife and then get a perfect pelt. But if you were to shoot it again, then it makes it so you don't have a perfect pelt, which was annoying. I have not caught all the birds and such. There's a lot of birds that I don't see because they're tiny. And I haven't looked up how best to find them. Never took the time to find the like non-hunting animals. The ones that sort of are what they are. Okay, well, I didn't ever think about lassoing anything until you mentioned it when I was talking about frustrations with getting snakes. Ah, I just took like the game as a guide. Where it's like, shoot it with a rifle, shoot it with whatever. It'd be funny if you're lassoing and knifing the birds. Like you get this little songbird and you take the lasso and catch it. You can't lasso birds. Or snakes. Maybe both. No, you can't lasso snakes. Snakes are annoying to hunt. There were a few times in the game where like I'd accidentally confront someone and then they'd start shooting me, and so I'd lasso them. And then I'd be like, try to calm them down. And then someone would come along and be like, oh no! And then try to run and catch that person. And then it would just end up being like 7 dead bodies on the trail, and people just coming up being like, whoop. And I'm like, oh man. Gotta ruin my karma or whatever. One thing that's nice about, you know this, but for hunting the legendary animals, you can just like throw dynamite at them and you still get a perfect pelt. Because it's part of the game mechanics. And if you kill the legendary animals, you get the perfect pelts on them. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do with the legendary animals. Just as long as you kill them, you get the pelt. It's fine. So, it's mostly like the one that was most an issue for that was I think the like albino moose, because that one you can't kill with one shot. You have to like shoot it several times. It's also annoying. The first time I played through with that one, it only means that you lose the money for the pelts, but the pelts are, I don't know, like 40 to 50 bucks each, or like it depends. But you can have some that are like $20+ the legendary pelts, and the moose is like in a river, and when I killed it, it landed in a way that I couldn't skin it because it was too far underwater. But I think like the next day, or no, when you go to the trapper dude, he'll just have the pelt and his stuff, I think, available if you want to make whatever it is with the legendary pelt bit. And add just a little bit more. It's weird how the color of the ink changes, but you don't really notice until you add more. Because the newer ink is slightly grayer, which won't show up on camera if I try to show it, but the dried ink is darker than the wet ink. So as the ink slowly dries while I'm working, it gets darker and slightly more viscous. Not terribly, but just a little bit. closer. I have 8 to go. Or 9, I always forget. Nine to go. 3 more. One more fill in, and then it'll be time to scan. let that one dry for half a second as a stretch. Let's get this. They're kind of chaotic in the pile that they are, so I'm just gonna take them this way, set them here. Nope. We gotta monitor the sound levels on this because this is not a full tape. Okay. It's not the best. Before I do that, this is 27. Face pieces, skins, other location, left sounds, folded, move that out, unfolded, paste that in, choose the spot. scan. A beautiful noise. I'm not as efficient at switching out pieces of paper for scanning in this setup. Just physically, the space is a bit different, which means I have to move a bit differently. So this might end up taking closer to like 18 to 20 minutes. The scanning process for 48 of these. Because if I'm doing it like as best I can, each scan takes about 18 seconds, so about a third of a minute. So if you take the amount and divide it by 3, you get approximately how long it takes me to scan that number of frames at 600 dpi. So if you have 48 divided by 3, you end up with 16 minutes. But if you add just like 1 second to each of those, you end up with something closer to 17 seconds. Add 2 seconds, 18 seconds, 3 seconds, 19 seconds, give or take. It's just something that when you're dealing with larger numbers of things, seconds and fractions of seconds actually really start to affect conceivable total amount of time. So if you're dealing with something that's like manufacturing 10,000 products a day, every second counts. these brushes later. A bit over a third done with scanning. Thursday is tomorrow. I think this paper is just slightly more volatile, perhaps. Like it curves a little bit more. So when I put it in the scanner, it doesn't line up quite as cleanly. Quite as precisely. So there's a chance that whenever I'm working with this paper that I got, which I have a ream of 500, that I might have to make small adjustments after the fact. Over halfway done scanning. If the music cuts out, please let me know. It's chose a bad time to try and monitor the levels on that and make sure it's still playing. Because I have my screen angled downward. Which means I'm not looking at really any component of this. Very close. Alright. I figured out what you were saying. It's not a fun feeling. No bueno. Okay. Have a sneeze escape. I understood it. 1000 to stack. Browse. Go on desktop. One of these live design bit. 127. Grab all these guys. Pick them up. Pull them in. While that's happening, gonna grab this. One of these. Okay, it's 1/27/2021. Space. And 48. One. Yeah. Let's take another moment or so. Let's set this back here. Zoom this guy out. $22. 21. 20. That's off. Is it? I'm gonna have to align some of these. That's okay. 5, 4, tres, dos, uno. Okay. Great frame animation. Make frames familiars. 1 second. Reverse frames. Doing an initial crop. Secondary crop. This live design modified. Did not escape that time. there's that. Okay. So it's spiel time. Okay. So if you want to watch this live stream or previous live streams in full, you can watch them all at youtube.com/traceloops. There's also some other videos there. If you want to buy these original stills or a shirt that has these stills on it, as well as other stills, artwork, shirts, etc., you can go to traceloops.com/store and purchase some things there. If you are trying to ship outside of the US but still want to buy something, there's not a native option within the store because of shipping prices being inconsistent with different elements and such. Oh, I realized that the music stopped. That's okay for right now. But anyway, if you want to do that, make those purchases, have them shipped outside the US, you can coordinate with me by emailing me, traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also just send general questions and inquiries there. If you want to follow me on other platforms, that's nice. I'd appreciate it if you did, but no obligation. You can follow me on Instagram.com/traceloops. You can also follow me on TikTok.com/@traceloops. So those are my main following platforms. I'll plan on being back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, which means that it'll be a shorter stream, something featuring an illustration or a still or something that doesn't take quite so long to complete. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat. I'm going to put on a tiny bit of music because this went past the recorded section. I just throw on the bongo voice. But you can throw whatever questions in the chat. Otherwise, you can email me at that aforementioned email address, traceloops@traceloops.com. Thank you all for watching. If you have questions, suggestions, curiosities, etc., you can throw it in the chat during live stream. You can direct message me on Instagram, and I'll do my best to get back to you, or you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. Don't think I have anything else to go over today. Again, be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and tomorrow is going to be a shorter stream and probably be some sort of illustration that's single still, as opposed to an animation with this one had 48 images in it. So thanks for watching. Be back tomorrow. Adios.